Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are tearing into a puzzle that is just, well, it's as haunting and beautiful as it is deeply, profoundly frustrating. Just imagine, for a second, a book that has been around for over 500 years, sitting quietly in libraries, and completely defying literally every single attempt to understand it. No way, right? But it's not a myth. It's a very real, physical object called the Voynich Manuscript. And today, we're going to look at the evidence to figure out why this thing remains the ultimate enigma of the medieval world. So what if a 500-year-old book just refused to be read? In our modern era of instant translation apps and limitless info at our fingertips, the idea of a completely untranslatable document feels kind of impossible. We're so used to cracking the code, solving the puzzle, digitizing the whole shebang, but the Voynich manuscript, it stands as this massive, defiant exception to all of our modern tech. It has completely and utterly baffled the absolute brightest minds on the planet. Let's dive right into how bizarre this thing actually is. The contents of this book are, well, they're nothing short of surreal. We aren't just talking about, someone's diary written in an old language. No, we are talking about highly detailed, hand-drawn illustrations of plants that literally do not exist on Earth. On top of that, you've got intricate celestial charts mapping out stars that astronomers can't even identify. And honestly, maybe the strangest part, there are pages and pages depicting these strange, often naked figures just bathing in these elaborate, interconnected, bubbling vats. It is literally like peeking into an alternate universe. Section 1. A History of Mystery. Let's trace the bizarre origins of this enigmatic text. To really grasp the gravity of this puzzle, we have to look at its timeline. Science actually gives us a solid starting point here. Carbon dating on the vellum, which is the prepared animal skin they used for pages back then, proves the material was created right in the early 15th century, specifically between 1404 and 1438. But from there, the history becomes a total fog. We do know it passed through the hands of some incredibly powerful people, including Holy Roman emperors and these secretive alchemists who were absolutely convinced it held the keys to the universe. After that, it was practically lost to time, until 1912. That's when a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich literally dusted it off in a Jesuit college near Rome, pulling the whole mystery right back into the modern light. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that this wasn't just the random, chaotic scribbling of a madman. The manuscript is highly, highly organized, with deliberate intent. It's actually divided into 4 distinct scientific sections. You've got the botanical section, which takes up the largest chunk of the book, and then that's followed by astronomical, biological, and pharmaceutical sections. This sheer level of organization implies that whoever wrote this was cataloging something specific, something they believed was of immense scientific or maybe even magical value. Let's zoom in on that massive botanical section for a second. This is definitely not your standard medieval gardening guide. It's more like a botanical bestiary. The plants actually appear to be these unnatural, Frankenstein-like composites. You'll see, like, the root of one plant attached to the stem of another, topped off with leaves that belong to something else entirely. It really makes you wonder, were these just completely imaginary creations, or do they belong to some undiscovered or maybe extinct corner of the world? And that brings us to the absolutely most maddening element of the whole thing, the text itself. The Voynich script is a total paradox. Visually, it's this beautiful, flowing, unknown writing system. But grammatically, it hovers right on the edge of recognizable language. It has syntax that looks organized, like it actually flows with the rhythm of real human speech. But the patterns are just irregular enough to completely shatter any attempt at linguistic pattern recognition. It's totally alien, yet frustratingly familiar. Moving on to Section 2. Battle of the Codebreakers, how the greatest minds and modern AI were both left completely baffled. So, just how monumental is this challenge? Well, during the Second World War, the brilliant cryptographers who successfully cracked the infamous German Enigma code, we're talking colleagues of the legendary Alan Turing at Bletchley Park, they turned their massive intellects toward the Voynich manuscript, and they failed. Decades later, we brought our most advanced tools to the fight. Researchers fed the entire text into modern AI and complex neural networks, hoping that just sheer massive computing power could find a hidden grammatical structure. The result? The AI actually struggled to distinguish if it was looking at a real language or just incredibly sophisticated gibberish. Both human genius and machine intelligence have been completely humbled by this thing. Because the code just won't crack, the theories about what it is have grown pretty wild over time. Some top researchers argue it's a completely lost natural dialect, or, maybe an early artificial language. Others lean more into the book's history, suggesting it's some sort of secretive alchemical shorthand designed to protect dangerous scientific findings from the lethal grip of the Inquisition. And then there are those who think it's a code within a code, like a complex, multi-layered cipher meant to be read only by a tiny group of elite initiates. Section 3, the hoax hypothesis. Could the entire manuscript just be a masterful forgery? Which begs the question, could we be staring at the greatest hoax in history? I know, it's a deeply unsettling thought for anyone who's literally dedicated their life to translating it, but we have to ask, what if we were just trying to read absolute gibberish? What if there is no secret to unlock, simply because there was never a lock in the first place? Honestly, the evidence for a medieval hoax is actually really compelling. From a linguistic standpoint, the text lacks the typical evolutionary markers that naturally develop in a language over time, and historically, well, it makes perfect sense for a scam. Think about it. A 15th century con artist could have easily seen the Renaissance obsession with mysticism and the occult, and then carefully crafted this mysterious prop to sell for a massive, massive profit to some wealthy, gullible nobleman. But wait, the hoax theory has its own massive contradictions. Yes, the motive to scam wealthy elites for a quick buck is super clear, but you have to weigh that against the sheer physical reality of the book. We are talking about over 200 pages of high-quality vellum. Back in the 1400s, that was an astronomical financial investment just for the raw materials alone. Then add in the thousands upon thousands of hours required to meticulously craft those intricate, highly consistent illustrations and the perfectly logical spacing of the text. Would a simple medieval fraudster really go to such incredible, literally bankrupting lengths? Which really forces us to ask this one critical question. If it was created purely for profit, why on earth would the author put so much painstaking effort into making a code that no one could possibly read? Usually, if you're making a fake mystical text, you design it to be just decipherable enough to impress the buyer, right? The Voynich Manuscript offers zero hints. It gives the reader absolutely nothing. It entirely challenges our definitions of art, fraud, and the whole pursuit of knowledge. Finally, Section 4, the enduring enigma, a timeless mystery reflecting our intellectual ambitions. Ultimately, the Voynich Manuscript really serves as a mirror for our own intellectual ambitions. Because the text is completely silent, we sort of project our own desires right onto its pages. If you're a linguist, you see a lost language. If you're really drawn to the supernatural, well, you see a record of alien contact. A historian might look at it and see an obscure medical secret, while a skeptic just sees a brilliant, elaborate prank. The manuscript basically acts as a giant Rorschach test for the human mind. It reflects exactly what the reader desperately wants to discover. And, maybe that's the ultimate lesson of the book. As the quote goes, "Some things are not meant to be read. They are only meant to be wondered at." Its true power doesn't actually lie in whatever botanical or alchemical secrets it might hold, but rather in its unyielding, timeless ability to generate wonder. It completely forces us to confront the very real limits of human understanding. As we continue to invent more and more advanced ways to decode the past, the manuscript just waits there, patient and completely unyielding. And it leaves us with one final lingering question to ponder. In our modern, hyper-connected, entirely data-driven age, where we expect an answer to every single question at the push of a button, can we actually accept a secret that simply refuses to be solved? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.